My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Black Widow. Look, I know everybody probably thinks I'm out to hate this movie because I give terrible reviews to Loki, but the truth is, I really like the MCU up until 2021, but the huge decline in quality these past 4 projects of Marvel's, it's just impossible not to get a bit more negative on the franchise because I just don't think the quality is there anymore, and this is Marvel's worst movie yet. But let's start off with what I did like. Scarlett Johansson is good in the movie. Florence Pugh's really good in the movie too. If you haven't seen Florence Pugh in movies like Midsommar or Fighting with the Family or Little Women, definitely check them out because she is a great talent and I can't wait to see more of her in, well, movies in the future. David Harbour is also good for what the movie required him to do. I'll get back to that in a bit, but he is good in the movie. And the opening credits to this movie are fantastic. It begins with a slow cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I just found it to have a very haunting atmosphere, and it gave me the impression that I was in for an emotional, character-driven, hard-hitting movie. And I definitely didn't get that, but those opening credits definitely were great. And that's where my positives end. Like, there's not much to like about this movie. The opening scene before the opening credits went on for far too long. Like, there's a point where they sing American Pie, and I'm just like, my goodness, how long is this opening scene? And that actually carries over into the entire movie because I don't think there's been a Marvel movie that I checked my Fitbit for the time more than. This movie, it isn't this fun, fast-paced action movie. It's actually incredibly slow and boring. There is no energy to this movie whatsoever, and it doesn't help that this entire movie just feels like filler. The entire story is incredibly basic and generic, and it just gets so stretched out that there's no substance to anything going on. Like, all the attempts to dive into the characters completely fell flat for me. I didn't find this movie to have any emotional resonance to it whatsoever, and I have to put that onto the humor of this movie, because anytime someone tried to have a serious discussion about what's going on or what happened to them, it was immediately undercut by a joke. Like, there was a scene where the 3 main characters are in a helicopter and Florence Pugh's characters talking about what they went through. And then David Harbour just makes some kind of terrible joke, and I'm just like that should have hit hard. That should have been a powerful emotional moment. But instead Marvel always goes for the joke, and it completely ruins any dramatic stakes to anything going on whatsoever. And the humor is just so predictable at this point. Like, there's a scene where Florence Pugh's character is talking to Black Widow about how she always has a superhero pose. And then later in the movie, she has that same superhero pose. And I knew it was going to cut to Florence Pugh in the helicopter being like, poser. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened next. And then later in the movie, I even knew they were going to have a point where she does her own superhero pose, and then she's going to be like, hate myself, or something like that. And fair enough, that exact thing happened later in the movie. It's just so predictable. The formula to these movies has been used so many times by now that it's just completely worn out, where every single joke, character beat, story beat now becomes predictable. And the writing behind the characters too just wasn't there. I didn't care about anyone in this movie. Black Widow was the same at the end of Captain America Civil War than she was at the beginning of Avengers Infinity War, and this movie takes place between those 2 movies. So considering that she's the same in this movie, in that movie, this movie just adds nothing to Black Widow's character. There's nothing here. I'm sure Vin Diesel would be thrilled this movie is about family.
I don't have friends. I got family.
But the movie has nothing to say about it. It doesn't dive deep enough into that dynamic. It's just very surface level in every single possible way. And any attempt to go deeper than surface level, it's undercut by a joke. So this entire script is just a disaster. And the action in this movie is bad. I saw this movie last night and I'm struggling to think of a single action moment. There's no impressive choreography. They're not well shot. They're over edited in every single opportunity. I just found the action to be bad. And I was actually excited for that element because there's a scene in the trailer where Black Widow is fighting with the villain as they're falling down in the sky. And I was just like, that looks like it could be a really awesome moment. But that entire moment of what you see of it is already in the trailer. It's very... Okay, guys, here we go. It's the scene that I was waiting for, and now it's done. Just underwhelming. And speaking of the villain, Taskmaster is maybe the worst MCU villain, and that's saying a lot. Very poorly developed, lazily written, cliche. Like, if you thought Deadpool and X-Men Origins Wolverine was bad, you should see what they do to Taskmaster. And what they attempted to do with the character in the end did not work in any way whatsoever. They tried to tie it in thematically, but I did not care about that aspect of the plot. If you've seen the movie, then you know what I'm talking about, but terrible villain. And the other main villain in this movie, played by Ray Winstone, just awful. We don't even see him until the end of the movie, so he doesn't have a presence whatsoever. They talk about him a lot. They tell him, oh, he's an evil man and all that, but you don't actually see him until the end. So he has zero presence in this entire movie, and then in the end, he's just the most cliche Bond villain ever. The entire last act is actually a complete ripoff the last act of The Winter Soldier. Like, if you actually put the two last acts back to back, there's a lot of similarities, except Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, had emotion, it had great action, and this one did not. There was no great action, it was not emotional. Every single beat it was aiming for was the same in Captain America 2, but that one succeeded and this one did not. There's also some flashbacks in this movie, and every time there was a flashback, I just thought it felt very sloppy, it wasn't utilized properly, and the post-credit scene, I didn't laugh at any of the jokes in this movie, but the way that they tried to set up one of the future MCU projects actually made me laugh. I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? Just terrible. But I haven't even addressed what might be one of the biggest problems of this movie, and everyone's complaining about it, and rightfully so, and that's, why is this movie coming out now in 2021? There is no logical reason for it. This movie doesn't change the way you view the character in Infinity War or Endgame. And she's dead in Endgame. And this movie comes out after she already died. Like, why? There is zero logic behind that decision. Scarlett Johansson is a movie star. Back in 2014, she had Lucy, which did crazy good at the box office. So why didn't this movie come out back then? Just terrible planning on Kevin Feige's part. Look, as someone who genuinely likes the Marvel movies, this is the worst one yet. It's completely forgettable. It's slow and boring. The character work isn't interesting. The humor ruins this movie. The action is awful. There's nothing there story-wise or character-wise. This movie was just terrible in every single way. And I'm going to go ahead and give Black Widow a 3 out of 10. Okay, did you see Black Widow? What did you think of it? Are you mad that they cast a white lady to play a Black Widow? Racist much, Marvel? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon. And Gavin out.